Jeana, great to see you. I think the kernel for this idea, this series that I'm doing on From Lawyer to CEO, came when we met. Actually, before we met, when I was introduced to you, and you had that CEO title, and it got me to thinking about high growth law firms and how there's this typical pattern of moving from lawyer to kind of business lead. And one of the things that you've clearly done is made that very explicit. I don't think you talk about being a lawyer. You talk about being the CEO of a law firm, right? When did that decision come about? When did that happen? When was the light bulb for you?
That label for me happened long ago, and it really started when I went to business school in my undergrad, and then I went
Okay.
to law school. So I had that business mindset going into law school, and then coming out, I became a partner in a traditional law firm, wonderful attorneys,
Right.
but it was the structure of the traditional law firm that kind of drove me a little crazy. And
Right.
I figured it's really baked into the core model of Goosmann is to run the firm like a business. And that was my novel idea when I started Goosmann Law Firm. And that's what we do. And I think that's really been a secret to our success. So when I founded the firm, I did it with a CEO's mindset. And then throughout the way, I have done a number of things to continue to grow as a CEO that I'm sure we'll talk about a little bit more. But it was really baked into the founding of the firm.
So, but you started out doing lawyerly stuff, right? Or not? Did you? Was this like I am a business leader and that's and that's it?
No, and I still do lawyerly stuff. So I
Okay.
am both the CEO and the managing partner of the Goosmann Law Firm. So
Okay.
to do that, I can only make that happen if we have a C-suite and an executive team
Okay.
of non-lawyers. And that really is probably our big differentiator when I say we run it like a business, is we have non-lawyers sitting in those key functions for a business.
Okay. What's the C-suite? Let's get right into it. What is your C-suite? Who are your key non-lawyers? Like what do those
Absolutely.
players look like?
Yeah. So it starts with the COO. I have a chief operations officer.
Okay.
And then reporting to the COO, we have a controller with a finance team
Okay.
and a marketing director. We have a client engagement director. IT reports to that person, and then an HR director. So each of those key functions has reports into the COO. And we're really set up like traction, or if you've
Ah,
ever read Rocket Fuel,
here it
I'm the CEO,
comes.
the visionary, and then the integrator is the COO.
Okay. So can you just give a 60 seconds explanation of traction, visionary, and integrator, and why that's important to you?
Yes. So there's a book by Jeana Goosmann called Traction. And in it, he has the entrepreneurial operating system. And we use that at the Goosmann Law Firm. Essentially, I am the visionary, and it's a personality profile, for lack of a better word. And you can take the quiz on the Traction website and see if you are a visionary or an integrator. But I'm the person that's setting the big goals, looking forward to the future. The integrator is the person that implements them and sets the priorities and helps make them happen. So we get together as a leadership team and help decide what are the initiatives going to be. But we have a really clear vision on where are our 10-year, 5-year, 3-year, 1-year, and then this quarter goals. And it really is a great separation of those duties. The integrator then is able to move those different levers and help make sure that we hit those different goals.
Okay. Question for you, because this is really important for lawyers and like the self-understanding of
Mhm.
attorneys. So go take the quiz, see where you fall into the integrator versus visionary kind of mindset. What are the characteristics of a great integrator? I mean, we're getting right into the details of this, but what are the characteristics of a great integrator, a great operations person? Because my gut is most lawyers, especially on the leadership side of a law firm, see themselves as the visionary, whether or not that's accurate or not. And the big hole to plug, and we have a bunch of clients who have plugged this hole, and it's very successful, is to have that integrator operations person that makes stuff happen. What do you look for? If you're using disc profiles or Myers-Briggs, or what are you looking for? What does that person look like?
Yeah, so that person is really the one that's going to come stand alongside you. They believe in your vision and where you're
Uh,
going, and then they
yeah,
want to make it happen. So they're the ones that are really strong in execution and enabling other team members, and they follow up on the regular with all those different people that you're delegating to actually make sure they're checking in and making sure that you're checking off the boxes and getting things done on a regular basis. So they have to be strong in delegation, follow up, as well as just execution. I mean, they're the person that's actually going to implement your plans and your dream. I also think I have found that priority management is critical and crucial because if you're a really strong visionary, you are not short on ideas on things you want to do. And this is going to be the person that has to be able to tell you, yes, when,
right.
or that's a great idea, but we're focused on these priorities at this point in time. Otherwise, it's really easy if you're a strong visionary to burn those people out.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. And you have to learn to listen to them. Like
Yes,
they get,
and have healthy dialogue on,
yes,
okay, I get it. These are stronger priorities. This is going to get us further than focusing over here right now. Because
right.
I think another thing too is as you're a smaller firm, for me, I think I'm the visionary integrator. I'm like a 98 on the visionary and I'm a 78 on the integrator. And they say you have to be like an 80 in order to actually qualify as strong in that category. So I wasn't completely weak on integration, which is important because when you're little, you probably can't afford a COO, right?
Right. Right.
That might be, your assistant helps you implement things. But I think that was one of the keys of growth too that I knew is people ask me, why do you want to grow? Well, part of it is then we can actually afford to have people in these different seats.
Right.
And as you grow to different levels, you're going to need more people around you and to fill out your bench, so to speak.
So this is the elephant in my head question.
Mhm.
Who do all these lawyers then report into? So you've got the operations person, the integrator, driving, making things happen. What does your org structure look like on the lawyer side, right? I can get to
Yeah.
all the business and support and marketing and IT and HR. Great, easy business functions. I'm a
Yes.
lawyer, right? Do I really who do I report to, and how does that work?
Yep, the lawyers report to other lawyers. So
Okay.
really the legal ops is separate from the business operations. And
Oh,
obviously they have to be in tandem, right? And
right.
they're very synergistic. But for the most part, I have a different managing partner of each of my different locations.
Okay.
And then they have direct reports and team members that report into them. So we're organized by both location as well as by practice area. And people are in, obviously, they sit in a location. We still have locations. People are still going to work in an office at the Goosmann Law Firm. And then they're also part of a practice area team with a practice area leader. So those functions, though, are different from HR is supporting them, marketing is supporting them, IT obviously has to support them, but all those different
Right.
support roles for those attorneys, we don't have the lawyers wearing those hats. And I guess that's really the biggest thing when people say, huh, a lot of law firms, okay, your employment lawyer could do your HR. Well, usually the person that's employment lawyer, they're not going to, first of all, if they're being an effective employment lawyer, they don't have time to
Right.
screen applicants, run your hiring process, your onboarding, your offboarding, all, your company benefits. There's a lot that goes into HR. And if you want them to be an outstanding employment lawyer, they're not going to have time to do it. And also those are just different skills and traits. A lot of times employment lawyers, if they're on the compliance side, they're pretty, they're very rule oriented. And
Right.
if you have somebody doing recruiting for you, that might not be the same personality profile that you want in your HR director.
Right. Right. Okay. Um, let's just to kind of set some scale on this. We talked about you need to be a big enough in order to have these kind of roles, these full-time roles. I thoroughly
Mhm.
agree with you. What's the size of the firm, and how much, given that size, how much of your time is spent on lawyering work, what I call lawyering work, as opposed to business work?
Yeah. So the firm today, we have 32 attorneys, a total team of about 67 people. So that gives you a sense of our scale. We're the largest woman owned law firm in the Midwest. And on our executive team, I kind of already ran through who sits there today. And we're constantly, as we grow and scale as an organization, we're constantly, looking at what skills and needs do we have there. I know going forward, we've only grown organically, but we're looking at, is it time for the firm to start to do some acquisitions? And do we have additional cities that we want to open in? So I think as we look at those skills, finding people that are on our executive team that can help us with those different roles and functions is something that we're looking for. So if you're interested in that and listening, reach out to me.
Yeah.
But I think too, at what point did we get there, right? And if I look back into the history on day one at Goosmann Law Firm, it was me and my part-time assistant. So we've obviously grown a lot over the years and constantly trying to scale. And it's not easy to scale a law firm. But I think once you have 5 attorneys, that's a point in time where it's okay. You're going to need a law firm administrator. You're going to need an office manager. You're going to need somebody that's an executive to help run the business of your firm if you want to continue to be a lawyer. You also asked, okay, what about me personally? What do? I do a lot of high stakes litigation and I lead litigation teams. So the $10 million and up or bet the company case, that is my sweet spot. And I lead a team. Those cases aren't done by a solo attorney. Those cases are done with a legal team. So I'm leading those legal teams and being a trial lawyer. I also do some complex estate planning and I help put together those strategies. So my top 2 strengths, I'm a strategic competitor, and that's where my highest and best use is. I, on the firm side, will help make strategic decisions. I obviously am the visionary, so I serve in that role, and I do a lot of the firm-wide messaging of what is our vision and where are we going and what do we stand for, and help lead those executive team meetings that we have quarterly.
How much of the, again, I use the term lawyering, and I don't mean to say,
Mhm.
I don't mean to make that sound like I'm
Yeah.
looking down on it. How much of that lawyering work is necessary in order to keep yourself fresh about the business, about the lawyering of law, right? And not just
Right.
become some detached business person.
Yeah, so I think about 2/3 of my time is lawyering and 1/3 of my time is running the business.
Okay.
And that's sort of my blend and balance. And I will say there are points in time, I call it like the mashup with my whole life, right? So sometimes my whole life gets mashed up into my identity of the CEO and managing partner of the law firm. But
Right.
there are moments of, obviously, if I'm in trial, that's going to take precedence. And I'm going to lean a lot more heavily on my other partners and the executive team at the firm. But if I have a case that gets settled, now I can like kind of come in and I can focus on it. Usually towards year end, we are trying to make a lot of plans this time of year for looking forward to the end of the year and what are we going to do next year. Sometimes that stuff ends up happening for me. Like when I'm on vacation, I have a vacation plan coming up and I know beach time is a great time for me to like kind of put my big picture hat on and
Okay.
think about where's the firm going in the future. And I'll take a journal with me and I'll jot down some of those things. It's not that I'm working really hard, but when you're removed from the firm,
I love it.
sometimes you can see it more clearly.
Yeah, I think, as a business owner, it's one of those things where there is that it's very hard to have that um, wall between your personal life and your business life. And acknowledging that you can have those vacations and still be thinking about work is actually a really healthy thing.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
it is amazing when I also drive in between our offices. So
Okay.
when I'm on those drives, those are also a lot of my thinking times too, right?
Do you podcast? What spurs the thinking? I'm curious because what spurs the thinking while you're driving?
One of the things I do podcasts, but
Okay.
one of the things I do each month, I'm a part of Vistage, which is a CEO peer group. And
Okay.
we get together as CEOs on our board once a month for an entire day. And during that day, 8 times out of the 12 a year, we have a speaker who comes in to train us on a different topic.
Okay.
And I usually lead that day. And I have a whole host of things that I want to activate and integrate into the firm. And it's either those sorts of meetings, or if I go to conference, or I have something I hear about. This is where the idea generation is just off the charts, right? And that's where I had to then learn to I can email those in. We're going to look at those quarterly and then fit them into the plan if they make sense, if priorities shift and change. But we used to have this thing where if I would go to conference and I would come back the next day and I would blow everything up. And you have to get past that. You have to be a little bit more
Yeah.
systemized and organized, especially as your organization grows, because it doesn't help if they're all focused on one particular thing and then you come in and like give them
Yeah.
whiplash.
Yeah. It's almost like you've been sitting in on our team meetings. They hate when I have thinking time because yes, it's all the ideas. Um, Curious, speaking about traction, have you been running your business with traction from day one? And are you using a coach for this?
Good question. So I don't think it's been from day one, but probably about the last 7 years, we've been
Okay.
introduced to traction and we don't follow it 100%. So
Okay.
I think we kind of have our own version. And then we've had to tweak it too. Like for how many meetings do we have and who's in those meetings? And as you grow too, you have to constantly look at that. At one point in time, we had all of our partners in the meeting. Well, now today that group has grown and we
Right.
don't want a weekly meeting with 16 of our highest revenue generating people. So then we've kind of scaled that back. And now it's really our operational leaders that they're the
Yeah.
ones meeting every week. Because let's be honest, that's who we were delegating everything to anyway.
Right.
And now we're coming in, we're quarterly and then doing monthly check-ins. So we've adapted as we go. My Vistage facilitator, he has a similar program that he runs called Growth Guru. And I think he's been the one to really help keep us on track and make sure that we are staying on the same page and have some good alignment.
So you do have a third party facilitator making sure that you stay on track with a platform and a program for running the business.
Well, I have a coach. I have a business
Okay.
coach and my facilitator there. And I think he meets with me every month. And then through those discussions, that's part of what facilitates things. But it's really the COO, the integrator of your business, who's in charge of making sure you stay on track.
Okay. Okay. Switching gears entirely.
Yeah.
The three most important metrics that you look at. What do you look at?
Cash flow, cash is king. Always
Okay.
looking at cash flow. I look at cash flow and I look at attorney headcount.
Okay.
Those are two of my biggest things. And then every month I'm looking at the P&L. And so those would be my three top.
Okay. Great. Um, Another question. What do you wish, like if you could go back to yourself, you said about 7 years.
Mhm.
If you could go back to yourself 7 years or 6 years, what would you say you need to do this earlier? You should have done this earlier. If we'd done this before, things would have been, we would have missed this disaster or we would have had this opportunity. What do you wish you had done earlier?
I think believe in yourself and the rest will follow. I actually have that written on a sign in my office,
Really?
and it is so true. And I have to still look at it because, especially when we're going through the great resignation, and
Yeah.
there's been so much turnover in all businesses and in all industries, and the legal hasn't been any exception to that. But
Right.
I used to take it really personal when people on my team would leave, and that kind of held me back. And I think learning to grow yourself through that really allows you to just continue to propel the organization forward. So you have to believe in yourself if you're going to be the leader. And with the more conviction that you have on where you are and where you're going, the more other people will believe it and be excited about it too.
Okay. Love it. Um, One of the things that often comes up, and I see this on advertisements and articles, one of the things that often comes up is this concept of work-life balance, right? Where
Mhm.
we're going to like put this plan in place and you'll be at the 4 hour work week and stuff like that. How much of that is happening for you and how much of that do you see as fantasy, right? Like you're running a very, very quickly growing successful law firm. Is that a part-time gig? Is that possible or is it really like fantasy dust in my world, in my speak?
For someone like me, it's fantasy dust. That is
Okay.
not my reality whatsoever. And I think it's because I love what I do. I'm very passionate about it.
Okay.
And I'm super driven and I constantly have new ideas and things that I want to do to layer into the law firm and into the legal space. So I'm not a person that's going to have a 4 hour work week. That's just not how
Right.
I'm made up. And if I'm not super busy, I will go create chaos. So that is just my reality.
Yeah.
And I think that it could be possible if you cast the vision and that you had an awesome stellar team and that's how you're running your firm. But I still am a key integral part to the Goosman Law Firm. And the more we grow the team, the more we have other people that are leading, they're carrying the lift, absolutely. But I think that for me, it's the mashup is more what I believe in. And when I say that, it's, there are going to be points in time where my children take more of my energy, or this role that I have in a community service position. If I often will chair a community service role or a professional organization, and that might take up more of my time. Sometimes your health might take up more of your time, or your personal family, and your work, your career, your certain team member, certain function, maybe HR's taking up more of your time, or a certain trial of mine, or a big deal of a client. So to me, it has to like kind of all come together, and it's a give and a take and a constant pull. And I don't think that there is this like perfect blend and balance. It just, it's more of how do you fit it all in there? When do you fit it all in there? And at certain points in your career and in your life, things are going to take precedence. And if you think of your career as a journey and think of this mashup, it's going to be more of a great blend for you. I myself, I can get new clients when I'm at a soccer game for my child. I might be doing a Zoom call in the car while I'm doing something else. I'm constantly layering the things that I need to do and get done, and managing my schedule and managing my time to make sure I'm spending my time on those highest and best uses, which I think that is a big trick too. It's once you really know where are your highest and best uses of your time, then you can strategically manage it there. And if there are things that you don't like to do, that's a great time to go, I should hire somebody else and delegate those roles to them.
So that, I mean, that's one of the really hard things for type A people to do, right? Like, okay, I'm going to take this, I'm going to give it to someone else. And I need to be okay with this being done 80% of the way that I would do the exact same thing.
If you can't delegate, you're never going to grow, right?
Right. Yep. Yeah. We had a great talk with Brett Tremblay, who did Get Staffed Up. And his whole point is like, the hardest thing is to make that first hire. And it's never going to be the way you would do it, but that's why you need to make the first hire. Otherwise, you're going to always be doing it, right?
Yes, always be doing. And people are going to mess up. I mean, we're people, we're all human, and you're going to have to give them grace, and you're going to have to delegate again. And a lot of times too, as the leader, I mean, you've got to be prepared to fix the messes and take the punches and then make the tough calls, because that's what you do as the leader of an organization.
You answer all the questions that no one else can answer, right?
Yes. And it's not easy. I mean, it's worth it, but you have to feed off of that. And if you're not a little bit of an adrenaline junkie, I think it can be hard to be a leader. And going into this next year, it's going to be super tough too. I just saw a couple different economists present on how we should plan for a recession. And so I'm doing a lot of thinking of, okay, what practice areas are recession proof and actually maybe even thrive during a recession. And let's make sure that we're focused there in the marketplace going into 2023.
It's awesome that you say that. We did a really short clip on the latest podcast. It was a clip we did called "Our Lawyers Like Spam," right? And spam, well, you went to business school, so you remember spam from microeconomics is that thing that has an increase in demand when the rest of the economy goes south. And so, yeah, I think lawyers should be thinking about that right now. You talked a lot about ideas, right? And just kind of left to your own devices, you basically come up with ideas and you have to prioritize those. What's the best idea? What's the most out of the box best idea? Like, what is the thing you're like, that was a really good idea, Jeana, as opposed, like, I'm sure a lot of times when you launch something, you're like, oh, well, that boat didn't float. What's the one thing where you're like, I'm so glad we did that because that was genius, and I need to find the next one of those.
Oh, that's a great question.
Yeah.
If I'm looking back, I think it's been some of those key hires, key team members that we've added to the team. And one of the things that when I look back, it was opening the office in Omaha when we opened that in 2017. It's our largest office today. And we added some stellar talent to the team when we opened in 2017. And I went all in too. I really committed myself and I committed the firm to making that a big success. I signed 8,000 square feet of Class A space, and nothing like that for 10 years that will get you going and make sure you're motivated, right? So I think sometimes when you actually sign and you commit yourself to whatever that great idea is, if you really get behind it and go all in on it, you're going to be determined to be successful. And that has been crucial and critical for us. Another thing that we did, so I'm going to give you two of them. That was a big one for us.
Yeah.
But then it was also joining NAMWOLF, the National Association of Minority and Women-Owned Law Firms.
Okay.
And to
Get into
go
that.
through and get in that was a big process.
Okay. I am personally really fascinated with the kind of non-white male lawyer leadership perspective. I'm also, as a absolute middle-aged white male, very much not in the business of telling people who don't look like me how they should be successful. So I'm going to ask you to do that on my behalf. Okay. So you said you're the largest woman-run law firm in the Midwest. Okay.
Yes, we
What
are.
what do you
And
what do you
that's
say to other
certified.
women,
So
right? Like what's like, okay, women, like these are the things that make this work. These are the things that are miserable. Like give that advice that I refuse to ever pontificate on.
well, I think for other women, you have to really look at your support team and who is on your support team, and do they have the same uh, goals and ambitions for you that you do. And for me, I have to give a lot of credit to my husband and my spouse and my immediate family. I have had these big and a lot of times women, you make that choice when you're young, often in your 20s, of who is your partner going to be, and
Right.
choose wisely. That is truly the most important thing that you will do.
That's absolutely true. I'm not sure I got a lot out of my undergraduate degree, but I did meet my wife there, and that has made so much of a difference in my world.
Mhm.
Talk more about that organization that you just referenced as your second thing. Like, what was the process for that? You said it was difficult, which was surprising to me. What was that process, and then how's that benefited you?
Yeah, so got certified as a women-owned business through WeBank, the Women Business Enterprise National Certification Council. That's a mouthful too. And then once we
They need a new name, right?
They do. Maybe you can help them with that. And then, well, they're two huge acronyms. So WeBank, and
Yeah.
then we joined NAMWOLF, the National Association of Minority and Women-Owned Law Firms. And
Okay.
through being a part of that group, we've been able to meet Fortune 1000 companies and those that support diversity in the legal workplace as well, and just develop relationships since we joined back in 2014. So you have to be able to prove yourself and have a great niche and do great work, but it did open the door to meeting some different companies that we probably wouldn't have met but for being a member.
Okay. Last thing,
Awesome. Yes.
if you were to tell someone that is running a 4-person law firm who has the ambition, right? Like I want to go from lawyer to CEO. I want to, I want this to be your journey to be similar, their journey to be similar to yours. What would you tell that person? Like what are the first step? What is the critical thing? How do you change? Like, do they start traction? Is there a great book to read? Do they join an organization? Do they hire a coach? Do they make a COO hire? Like, what's the key thing that switches that mindset from I'm mostly a lawyer to I'm running a business?
So I wrote my own book in 2019. It is
Okay.
called Worth It: Business Leaders Ready, Execute, Deliver. And it is certainly written for other potential CEOs of law firms and leaders of law firms. And I would recommend it. You can get it on Amazon, and it'll teach you how to get ready and then be able to execute and deliver on your plans. And I talk about all the things that I do and I have found to be my secrets of success, and tell some good stories in the book.
So one of the things I heard this, Ben Glass mentioned this, or maybe it was Charlie Mann mentioned this with Great Legal Marketing. They've just finished up their annual conference, and one of the key takeaway, 3 key takeaways on this, but one of them was the people who are really successful don't need to keep it a secret. They're happy to share. So with that, thank you for sharing. Super, super appreciative. Thank you for your time. And let's stay connected.
Sounds wonderful. Always enjoy following you, and I appreciate the opportunity today.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye, Jeana.